Kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1867. 10 things to do at a family event. Last night we talked about what you could do at a family reunion. Tonight we're talking about birthdays, weddings, family gatherings for holidays, baby showers, christenings, baptisms, naming ceremonies. I'm trying to think of all the other ones that go out there. Anytime the family gets together for a reason to celebrate, what are some other activities that you can do? Now, some of you actually private messaged me yesterday today asking me this question. Okay, that's at family reunions. We don't do family reunions, but we get together for birthdays. We do a family picnic. We do da-da-da. What other things can we do? So we came up with a list of 10 things. So are you ready? We're going to go through them. 1, you can host a family trivia game. Create a trivia game with questions about family history, fun facts, and interesting stories. This helps everyone learn new things in a fun and engaging way. Like, for example, you could turn around and say, who was the person who, here's one that I came across the other day with a family member. Who was the person in our, well, we're actually not sure if we are related or not. We're still trying to figure that connection out. But anyway, so who is the person in the family tree? And it could be, and you might even put a limit on this. We're only going back 5 generations, which would be you, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, second. So you may be only going back to second great-grandparents. Who in our family appeared on stage at the very first Royal Variety Performance Show in 1912? Yes, that is actually a real thing somewhere in my family tree. And you could, but you do it for stuff for that you would know that was intimate for your own family. Who went to, where did my grandfather go? Who in the family served in the Women's Auxiliary Air Force? That was my grandmother, just simple questions like that people do. And some people may not get it, but then you have the answer there with the story to go with it. So they learn not only that person was involved with that historical event, but the role that they played in that event, how it affected their lives, some of the little bits that you've heard along the way about them and what they did and all that sort of stuff. So, just make it a fun game, Who was born in January of, I don't know, pick a year. But, put some fun facts in there, put some family history in there, some interesting stories. So, you can ask a question about that and then you give the story afterwards. Number 2 is display a family history timeline. Set a visual timeline of key family events with births, marriages, immigrations, deaths, etc., buying pieces of land. It helps everyone see the bigger picture. But also, when you are doing this, don't just do it for your family. Also slot in there world events that were happening at that time, because that would then set that would then help you visualize when you see the timeline across there. This is where our second great grandparents were born. They were born, I don't know, in Russia. And this is when they immigrated to the US. This is what was happening in the world at the time. They left Russia to come to the US because of this religious persecution at the time that was going on. So you get that timeline going on. They arrived here. This is where they settled. They settled there for da-da-da. These people left and went to this place. These people went and left to this place. These people were married. Here's their children, blah, 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 blah. And you have that timeline. And then we entered World War II. And during World War II, this person served, and this person served, and this person served. So you're connecting in those pieces of not just births, deaths, and marriages, but also things like immigration. Where did they come from? Where did they go to? Why? What other events were happening at the time that may have directed their course of where they moved to, where they're living, or what they did? Or maybe their trade was a trade that was useful during a war or an event, or useful with recovering from a hurricane, or useful for helping recover after some sort of natural disaster. So what role did this is when they started this company, which is still around today, and this is some of the things that have happened during the company over that time. And then this is where people were slotted in and married and born and buried and everything else. So just make that timeline. It's always very interesting to do a timeline so you can see what who was around at what period of time. Who was around during World War II? Who was around during World War I? How did that affect their lives? Who was around during the Spanish flu pandemic in the early 1900s? Who was around during COVID? Who was around during 9/11, which is coming up to, the anniversary of that's coming up tomorrow. So you could put those events on the calendar so people can see who was around at that time, who was living where. And it just makes a very interesting visual timeline to see, oh, they lived during that. They were around when the men, when Neil Armstrong first walked on the moon. Oh, hey, Grandma, what do you remember about that? Or great grandma, what do you remember about that incident happening? About that happening? Did you watch it on TV? What happened? And you can start asking questions if those people are still around. Start asking questions about those events. What was it like for them? And record those stories. So there's that, the visual family history timeline. Pass around a family recipe book. Collect favorite family recipes from relatives and compile them into a book and ask each person to share the story or the origin behind the recipe. What a cool thing that is. I know there are families that get together and they love to cook together for, it could be for birthdays, it could be for Thanksgiving, it could be for Christmas, it could be for, Hanukkah, any other holiday out there where the family comes. That's their one time of the year where they come together and they cook together and each has their own recipe that they use, or they've got recipes that have been passed down through the years. What are the stories behind those recipes? Where did they come from? Did they come from as in, who was it? Oh, Phoebe, who found out, I think it was her grandmother who made these really famous chocolate chip cookies or something, and it turned out to be the recipe off the back of the Nestle chocolate chips. Yes. She found out it wasn't such a family secret after all. I still remember that episode. You could do create a family photo booth, set up a photo booth with props and invite relatives to pose for pictures, use old family photos as inspiration or for theme shots, and have everyone share memories related to the photos. Now, you have a lot of this going around online and social media. You see it often. This was our picture 20 years ago that we took, and it might be, and I've been seeing this lately on TikTok with, here is my dad holding me when I was like 5 days old. Here's me holding my son at 5 days old. And you've got the two pictures next to each other as a comparison. Or they took a family picture back 20 years ago, and here they are today doing that exact same, or trying to as best they can to recreate that family picture again. So I see that a lot. So have fun doing that. What was the story behind that picture? When was that picture? When you originally took that picture, what was the story? Was there a story behind it that went with it? Now let's recreate that picture with you today, with the same people in it. Play Who's Who with baby photos. Oh my gosh, I love this. There was, where was it? There was a time that they did like a Who's Who with baby pictures of celebrities, and you had to pick out the celebrities. It was in some magazine somewhere, and you had to take you had to say, and they had the list of the celebrities down the side. You had the photographs, and you had to match up the names with the celebrities. Why not do it with your own family? That's always fun to do, because that's when you also realize that, oh, that's not you as a baby. That's you as a baby. And you suddenly realize that kids start looking like older relatives when they were kids. So start, do that one. That's always a fun one when you pull out pictures and blow them up and go, here, and you mix them all up so there's no particular age order or anything to them, and people have to guess who's that in the baby picture. And it could be everybody that's in the room has their baby picture up there. Who's who? Pick them out. Host a family talent show. Encourage relatives to show off talents or a hobby passed down through the generations, whether it's a musical skill, storytelling, or crafting. These talents are often tied to family traditions. I come from a long line of storytellers. I had great aunts who were fantastic storytellers, and that was on my dad's side. My grandfather was a phenomenal storyteller. He could keep us kids entertained for ages with fairy tales that didn't end with happy ever afters. You hear the story, like Cinderella and the prince drove off in their carriage to live happily ever after. Yeah, no. We don't have any. We never had fairy stories end that way. They drove off and went on some great grand adventure. It was awesome. He came up with some great, and he came up with some great ending. He would tell the fairy tale kind of the normal way, and then there was grandpa, and then there was granddad's, but added on to the end, which made these stories like string out forever. And every time we asked, oh, can you tell us the one about, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, or can you tell us the one about Cinderella, or can you tell us the one about Hansel and Gretel? They all ended differently every single time. We never had the same story twice. The beginning, yes. The ending, no. We never had the same story twice. He had such an amazing imagination and a creative way of telling stories, and we just absolutely loved going and visiting Granddad and having him tell us stories when we were kids. Remember, we used to sit, my two brothers and I used to sit on his knees, and he would pretend to fall asleep. He had to kiss his cheek, and he'd wake up and carry on like he hadn't fallen asleep at all. Just such great memories with that, and his ability to storytell. My grandmother, his wife, was a great storyteller as well, telling us all stories about her, some stories about her childhood, but mainly about her time during World War II when she served in the Women's Auxiliary Air Force. My great aunts on both sides, like their siblings on both sides of the family, great storytellers with family history and stories of when they were children, things that they did as they were growing up. Could sit for hours and listen. My mum's sisters are great storytellers as well. And oftentimes it's just fun just to sit there, let them talk, and just tune in. And just sit there quietly and let them, oh, do you remember this time? And off they'll be again. Or one time, this is the funniest thing. I wish I had been in the room. My mum and dad both, my dad told his version of it and my mum told her version of it. But they were going to be, my parents were going on a cruise to the subantarctic islands. So these are the islands between Antarctica and New Zealand. And it was, I think, like a 7-night cruise, I think. Might have been a 14-night. I don't know. They were going on this cruise. And they were visiting islands, and they were told whatever they took onto the island, they had to bring off. So, and there was no facilities on the island. So me thinking there's no facilities on it, they're going to need some stuff to take with them. If there's no facilities on the island, they're going to need some stuff because they're going to take everything back off again. So I made up this traveling kit for them that had in there things like tush wipes. It had in there bags for number 2. It had in there things for number 1s and including urinals for women, portable urinals for women and things that could put it into a bag that they could then seal it up. And there's all these little bits and pieces in there to help them remove their waste and take it with them. Unfortunately for my mum, the box arrived when my 2 oldest nephews were staying with her, and I was trying to remember how old they were. But they were at that curious stage of, Grandma, what's that for? Grandma, what's that for? So Grandma was having to make up what things were for so that they didn't know what the true purpose of some of this stuff was. But then my mum's younger sister arrived, and my dad told the story that my uncle and my dad sat there, and they just sat back while my mum and her younger sister went through this box of stuff, making up all sorts of uses, alternative uses for what they were actually designed for. And so you get we get great stories like things like that coming through. So I've got storytelling from both sides. And I have great aunts and uncles on my mum's side who I have met as well, who are great storytellers as well. These are people that will tell you genealogy stories, like stories of them growing up, stories that they had heard about their parents, their grandparents, and they would tell stories not just about themselves, but also about their family, as in parents, grandparents, siblings, and that sort of thing as well. So I love the storytelling. And then sometimes there's musical stuff that's continued down through the family and everything else. It's gone from generation to generation. So you have that, or crafts. So you've got those skills that are passed down from generation to generation as well. Back in the like in the 1800s and things, back in the day, not so much in the mid 90s onwards, I think it is. I'll have to go back and have a look. But back in the 1800s and before, you usually, as a child, you would follow in your parents' footsteps, which is why with my third great-grandfather, when we found out that he was a bookbinder, we couldn't understand how he became a bookbinder when his father was a jeweler. We found the stuff through records and things, like on his baptismal records. It had that he was no, it didn't have on his baptismal records. It had on my third great-grandfather's marriage certificate. It had that his dad was a foreign agent. I thought he was a spy. Nope, no such thing. It wasn't until the 1851 census that my grandmother was listed as the head of the house, but her occupation was that she was married to a jeweler. So then I figured out the foreign agent thing was he would get on the ships, go to the east, pick up, India or Asia, and pick up gems and jewels and stuff and bring them back and make them into sparkling jewelry. That's the foreign agent portion. But my third great-grandfather ended up being a bookbinder, and I'm like, how did that happen? And when we found my third great-grandfather's baptismal records, we discovered, because you always check above and below, or the next page, if it's the last entry on the page, always check the next page. And then when you're doing census reports, always check what's on the next page as well, because the house that is opposite them may be on the next page, because typically enumerators would go down one side of the street and then come back. They wouldn't zigzag across the road. So they'll go down one side and come back the other, so you could see who their neighbors across the road were. And lo and behold, the great-grandfather's name was there, and it had her name, his mother's name, maiden name, where she was living, but then it had a little line drawn across it and had the father's name, and it had that he was or had been from or was from, but it implied past tense, and it had his address there. And I'm looking at this going, why is there two different addresses? Above, nothing. So let's have a look below like we've been taught. So we looked below, and there was this other kid there that had the same mother at the same address, but had a different father, and that father was a bookbinder. And it turned out sometime since the 1851 census in 1855, somewhere in that 4-year period, something had happened to my fourth great-grandfather, and she had ended up getting married to this guy who was a bookbinder. And they ended up having a kid, and then they got them both baptized at the same time. So still haven't found her marriage certificate for that second marriage, but we're still looking. But he was a bookbinder, and that's how my third great-grandfather ended up being a bookbinder. Oh, maybe that's where my love of books come from. Because all my grandparents, I know my grandfather was a great reader. It was grandma. I don't remember seeing grandma. I know granddad was on the other side of the family. Maybe that's where my love for books came from, was now on my dad's side of the family, from being a bookbinder. I actually bound some books. It was a job I had in the Air Force. And in fact, I had it at high school as well. Organize a family heirloom show and tell. Bring along family heirlooms like a watch, quilts, photographs, and explain its significance. It could be cufflinks. I've got a box of cufflinks from Brad's grandfather sitting in my safe, and I'm missing a couple, and I think they may have fallen out in the boxes that they were packed in. So I've got to wait till I go through the boxes a little more and see if I can find that missing cufflink. But that I'm going to pass on to Brad's boys and say, hey, these were from your great-grandfather. One of them is there's a fob watch and a pocket watch in there, and cufflinks and a couple of tie pins are in there as well, or tie slides that belong to their great-grandfather. So we've got that stuff that we can pass on to them, onto the boys. And what else have we got? I've got a barometer that's made of solid oak that belonged, I think it was my second great-grandfather it belonged to. It doesn't work, but it's really cool. It looks really, really cool. And I'd have to go back to my mum and dad and find out the story behind it, because I can't remember which side of the family. I know it's a great-grandfather. I just can't remember which side of the family it came from. I need to write this stuff down. So, you can bring stuff like that. There could be, and in fact, in my cupboard, I have a bone china tea set. There is a bread and butter plate, a saucer, and a cup. And that set, when my grandmother was 15, she gave that set to her mother for her birthday. So my grandmother gave it to my great-grandmother for her birthday, and my grandmother was 15 at the time. So, and I have that. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I have a couple of other pieces of china from my grandmother's house as well. So yeah, I love heirlooms. Heirlooms are fun, telling the story behind them. Create a family history quiz. Before the event, send out a short quiz asking family members about their knowledge of family history. At the event, share the answers and fill in any gaps with new discoveries. Now, that could be interesting. How much do you know about your family? Yes, that's always a fun thing to find out. Put together a memory wall. Set up a large poster or board where family members can write down their favorite family memories, stories, or facts. And this interactive display becomes a treasure trove of information. You could do this at a funeral wake, where you have a board there and you get people to write stories of their memories of the person that they have just had the funeral service for. You could also do it at a wedding. Yeah, you do it at a wedding? Yeah. Write down stories about the bride and groom. You have the bride's board, you have the groom's board. Have family members write down stories that they remember about the bride and groom as they were growing up through the years. You could adjust a lot of these to different things, memories, if you're doing a baby shower, memories of other children in the family. What's the birth story of other children in the families? Especially about the mum to be. What are some stories about around her when she was born? What were some of the things that happened there and that sort of thing? Let's see. Plan a storytelling session with elders. Set aside a time for the older generation to tell stories about their childhood, parents or grandparents, maybe even great-grandparents. Record these and their siblings. Record these stories for future reference, preserving family memories for years to come. I love that idea of doing that. I had a great aunt who I was 40 when I met her, and which actually surprised me because my dad, I found out, was her favorite nephew. And I'm like, and they used to spend a lot of time together when he was growing up. And I said to Mum and Dad when we were in the car afterwards, leaving my dad's cousin's place and heading back to the bed and breakfast we were staying at, I said to them, have I ever met Auntie Pat? And my mum and dad looked at each other and says, no, I don't think you have. And I'm like, huh. So you're her favorite nephew, and I'm 40, and I've never met your favorite aunt. I didn't compute that one. But it was just life circumstances. We never were in the same place at the same time to meet. And she was such a bundle of energy and a ray of sunshine, and absolutely fell in love with her the first moment I met her. She gets out of the car, she wanders around, she puts her arms like this and goes, see if you fit. So I had to coordinate my arms to go opposite hers to go in and give her this big hug. And she was shorter than I'm 5'4", and she was shorter than me. And after dinner, before dinner, she was telling stories, and I had my little digital recorder with us, and I had it sitting on the table there while after dinner she's telling family histories. She's sharing family history stories with me. And then she turned and she kept looking at the thing. She says, can you turn that thing off? She said, that red light's really annoying me. I went, okay. So I picked it up. I made like I was turning it off, and then I put it back down so the light was down where she couldn't see it, but it was still recording. And then as soon as I did that, boom, the floodgates opened, and there was just stories flowing out of her. And I ended up having to transcribe that. And there was a lot of good information in there of stories and stuff that she had told that night. But so if you are recording other people, especially the older generation, make sure they can't see the recording lights, so they don't know that they can't see that they're being recorded. So those are just 10 ideas. We'll run through them again real fast. You got host a family trivia game, display a family history timeline, pass around a family recipe book, create a family photo booth, play Who's Who with baby photos, host a family talent show, organize a family heirloom show and tell, create a family history quiz, put together a memory wall, and plan storytelling sessions with the elders. Some great activities that you can do at any family gathering, whether it's for birthday, baby showers, christenings, baptisms, naming ceremonies, they say weddings, engagement parties, even funerals. Even funerals you can do some of those things with. And guess somebody's got bored of waiting. But anyway, so go out, have fun with some of these ideas and things. Let us know what some of your ideas are. What are some things that you do at family get-togethers that is like a traditional thing that you do every time you come together? And what ways are you, and remember to record all this stuff. Make sure you find some way to record it, because last night we talked about transcribing any voice recordings or videos, putting them into a book with a QR code that goes to a private link on a YouTube channel that you have set up, that they can go and watch, that they can scan it and go watch those videos or hear the recordings and just follow along with the transcript in the book. You can end up putting photographs into the book that were taken at the event, and you then use that book to give out to family members at Christmas time. It's a great, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever, some time for giving gifts or things like that. If you've got, this is another good one. If you have somebody who is having a milestone birthday, contact family members and ask them for stories about that person, that you can then put a memory book together for that person. If they have photographs, even better. If they have videos, awesome. Put them all together in a book so that and then they can present it to that person, like a This Is Your Life type book. Have you ever seen the show This Is Your Life? Make up one of those for somebody who's celebrating a milestone birthday, especially if you've got like somebody who's turning 100, like a centurion that's turning 100, and even include in there some newspaper articles from, if you can find them, and most times you can. You can go to places like newspapers.com, newspaperarchives.com, what's the other one? Gen Bank, I think it's called. Let's have a look. Where they have these archived newspapers and things. If you're in New Zealand, you go to pastpapers.archives.co.nz, I think it is. I think that's what it is. Just put Past Papers New Zealand into Google, you'll find it. And print off some of these articles that they may even appear in, or ones that was of an event that they were involved with somehow, and put them into this book and kind of make that book like a timeline through history, starting with when they were born all the way through up to their milestone birthday. Gather stories from friends, from other family members that are still around, and what are some of your favorite stories about this person? We're putting a book together. We're putting a book together to celebrate, great grandma's 100th birthday. What are some of your favorite stories that you have about great grandma? And do you have any photographs that you can share with us? And, you can have them scan the photographs in and email you the scanned copies of the photographs, especially since you're going to be making up a book anyway. And, put it all together, print it off, and present it to her for her birthday from the entire family. Just that make it a family project. So there's number 11. Make a memory book for somebody who's having a milestone birthday or a milestone anniversary. If you've got a couple that's coming up, like for example, my parents are turning 60 next year. I just thought of this. So I don't have a lot of time to arrange it. So Mum and Dad, I hope you're not watching this. My parents have their 60th wedding anniversary next year. What sort of, what stories can I come up with about their married life together, about trips they've been on? I might go quiz my aunts and uncles about stories for them of them through their married life, during their married life, from when they got married through to today, and put that together in a book. I just gave myself another project, didn't I? I did. I hope my parents do not watch this episode. If they do, it doesn't matter. But I better get onto it real fast because, that's coming up quick. Anyway, that's it. I'm out of here. Go out and have a super fantastic